I've been doing deliverance ministry for the last 25 years. And I tell you, I've seen all kinds of, demonic strongholds broken on people's lives, on my life, on the lives of others. But one of the things that I realize is that there's another level to this thing.
Wow.
So one day I was in my hotel room on a preaching assignment, and the Spirit of God began to download to me a paradigm shift and a codex, if you will, for deliverance. And a dear friend of mine, a lawyer in Pittsburgh area, he was talking to me one time when I was trying to buy property in Florida. And the property is actually, there's no debt on the property. They own it outright. There's no bank loan. And so I remember telling him, I said, man, the property is free and clear. But as a real estate attorney, he says, well, you need to be careful. He said, they may not owe any debt on the property. He says, but it may not be clear. I said, what do you mean? He said, you need to do a title search to make sure there are no liens on the property.
Wow.
He said, for example, you can have a mechanic's lien where a person can file a claim in the court that will prevent you from selling that property or receiving the title to the property. And the Lord spoke to me right then and there, Sister Katie. He said, many of my people, he said, though I've shed my blood to totally pay the debt that the enemy had caused sin against them, he said, many people have demonic liens on their lives that is keeping them from enjoying the abundant life in full, the one that I died and bled for. And he says, and these liens are established through agreements with demonic powers, through iniquity, through traumatic experiences, where people actually enter into these agreements, sometimes unknowingly, and they now have legal power in the spirit realm, keeping them from being able to receive what God has for them, keeping them from walking in total freedom. So we call those demonic liens.
Wow. Okay, so guys, I can so relate to this because, we've been operating the courts of heaven for a while now, and all thanks to Robert Henderson for really birthing this revelation, and thanks to the Holy Spirit for expanding it to people like myself and Dr. Kynan, where we're getting our own words, and they're very effective as we go into the court and fight these things. Now, did you hear what he said? That things like iniquities in the bloodline, like sins in the blood, like traumatic experiences, can give the enemy a legal right to put a lien on your possessions, so that the enemy can have a legal claim to try to take that possession away from you and give it to himself. So is the first step in this whole thing, is that getting rid of those landing strips, asking the court, asking yourself, asking the Holy Spirit to search, to find the iniquities, to find the sins, the bloodlines, the traumas?
Yeah, in 1 Corinthians chapter 11, it talks about, he says, let a man examine himself. And this is a legal terminology. It deals with scrutinizing. Right. It deals with when you in the courts have what's called a cross-examination, or an examination of a witness, where we interrogate those witnesses with very specific questions. And I think one of the things that people have to begin to ask themselves is, you know what? Why do I think this way? Why do I have these feelings, these emotions? Why am I not getting ahead? And then I believe the Holy Spirit as our paralegal, the Parakletos, Jesus talked about that in John chapter 16, the helper would come and help us. He will help us by the power of God begin to search those grounds and show us the areas where we have literally come into agreement. I give an example. For many years, even in ministry, I found myself not able to get ahead. It was like, man, doors weren't opening. I knew I would love God. I didn't have any blatant sin in my life. And I thought, Lord, why are these doors not opening to me? Ministry opportunities, advancement. And one day the Holy Spirit showed me, he said, son, you have unwittingly come into agreement with the spirit of victimhood. Wow. And I said, what? And he took me back to instances in my life where I felt mistreated. I felt defrauded. I felt, abused in many ways. And even though I felt like I went forward, the agreement was still there. And because the agreement was still there, those demonic powers had a claim
Wow.
against my opportunities. There was a lien on my opportunities. And so even though I was blood bought and spirit filled, I could not walk into destiny situations that God had foreordained for my life because I had come into agreement unwittingly with the spirit of victimhood. And so when I discharged that name, first of all, I repented. Father, if you call me, if you said I'm accepted in the beloved, I cannot be a victim. I can't be victorious and a victim at the same time. Therefore, I renounce this agreement with victimhood. I renounce this agreement that says that I'm less than what you created me to be and provides these excuses. And I said, Lord, I come into agreement with the spirit of victory. And it was almost like instantly, Sister Katie, doors began. I started getting phone calls, and these were people who wanted to call, but because of the lien, they couldn't call me.
Wow.
I really want people to hear this. Because
Wow.
of these liens, they could not call me, even if they wanted to, until those debts had been discharged.
Oh my gosh. Well, guys, you remember what Paul said in 1 Corinthians 11. He said, "Judge yourself, lest ye face divine judgment." Okay,
That's right.
that's all courtroom terms, right? Dr. Kynan, it's like, wow, when we don't ask the Holy Spirit to reveal the junk in us, the attitude problems, the character bents, things like that, and then we don't judge them, we'll face divine judgment, meaning the liens that have been filed against us will actually have a legal right to come
That's
against
right.
us. Wow,
That's absolutely right.
this
Yeah.
is a big deal, guys.